Maybe don't know.
This time, next time to build. This 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 time power. This time to build power. This time to build power. This time to build power.
What's up, everybody? I am your host, Chris Hampton. Welcome to episode 32 of the Power Company Podcast, brought to you by PowerCompanyClimbing.com. I am sitting here in Denver, Colorado at my friend Brendan Leonard's house, Brendan and Hillary Oliver's house, I guess I should say. And you might know them better as semirad.com and Juniper Media. They've been nice enough to let me use their house several times while I've been here in Denver, so shout out to you guys. Thank you. And I'm here to speak to the team at Rockin' and Jammin' and work with their coaches a little bit. And my friend Natalie hooked that up. So thanks, Natalie. I appreciate that. I'm really looking forward to working with those guys tonight. And after tonight, I picked Nate up at the airport and we head to St. Louis, where I'll be emceeing the So Ill Showdown on March 24th and 25th. So if you're in the So Ill area, you should definitely show up for that comp. As far as I'm concerned, it's the indoor comp of the year. So come on out and say hello while you're there. The following week, Nate and I will be staying in St. Louis, where we'll be running 3 separate workshops at So Ill on the 27th, 28th, and 29th. The first one will just be hang out with us. We'll give out free advice. You can ask us questions. We'll all be climbing together at the gym. And we'll do a better sport climbing workshop and a better bouldering workshop. And we're going to wrap up that week at So Ill on Thursday, March 30th with a podcast in front of a live audience. So if you're around, please come out. We're going to be talking to some local heroes. Nate and I will both be there. You can ask us questions. It's going to be a good time. So definitely come out. Before I start this episode off, I want to say one last thing. With this episode, we'll almost certainly hit 100,000 downloads. So thank you to you guys. That's huge. We've just been doing this a little over a year, and I can't even fathom that 100,000 times people have listened to me ramble on for hours. So thank you for that. However, we only have 48 ratings and 33 reviews on iTunes. And frankly, I think we can do better. I'm looking to hit 100 reviews in 2017. So if you're a subscriber, if you're listening to this and you haven't gone to iTunes, believe me, I know how much of a pain it is. But if you haven't gone and left us a review, left us a rating, please go do that. I greatly appreciate it. The podcast powers that be tell me that it's big for getting us in front of new people on iTunes. And thanks to you guys who have left reviews. That's gigantic for us. And I've got a couple I just want to highlight today from Jess Blah. She's a climbing coach, lifelong student. She says, "These podcasts are pure gold. I have notepads full of information already. Keep them coming." Jess, we certainly will. Thank you. And from Erin Isla, who I was lucky enough to meet and climb with in Waco Tanks this season. Her title is awesome, and she says, "Super useful and applicable information. Keep it up, guys. Love the board meetings. Great stuff." Thanks, Aaron. We've got a board meeting coming the next episode with all 4 of us, actually. Be the first one with all 4 of us. So looking forward to that. Today's episode, Justen Sjong. We sat down at Justen's house last summer. So it's taken a while to get this out, but you guys know I got a backlog here. We sat down at his house and we had a really wide-ranging conversation about ego, partnerships, and awareness of your own climbing. So I'm just going to jump right into this.
Maybe don't know.
But when someone is climbing well, you see that natural, the rhythm, like they feel it. And that's the key sense that most people don't tap into when they're training, is feeling.
This time to build power. This time to build power. This time to build power.
But what I want to talk to you about is ego, both both positive and negative, because it can go both ways, right?
Yeah.
And you've worked with some high-level athletes, and I'm sure there's a big ego game that goes on there. And something that Nate and I were talking about on the way over that I want to start with that I think is pretty powerful is this sense of self-worth that people take from their climbing, and with pro athletes, I'm sure it's exaggerated even more. But even just the general climber has this sense of self-worth tied into their climbing, be it negative or positive. So what do you see, the differences between pro athletes versus the general climbing public?
Oh, good question. Higher level athletes, self-worth, it's their identity. They highly connect to it. I often see them excel at one genre of climbing, be it bouldering, sport, trad, and they really cling to that. And I guess through the years, I've seen these people, they really cling to it, and then over time, their bodies can't handle it. Especially like right now, it seems like a lot of the strong boulders in the last number of years their bodies are, I don't know about breaking down, but they're getting hammered from bouldering all the time and landing. And they're starting to venture off into sport climbing or trad climbing or something different. And ego is a part because they're not throwing down the same numbers.
Right.
I think it's pretty cool that Carlo, he throws down big numbers, bouldering, obviously. He's been taking more of an interest. It sounds like he's been up on the diamond this year.
Yep.
And I find that great. Just climbing like 5'11s, 5'10s, I believe. Mm-hmm. I don't know the details, and I think it's really a good thing. It requires... I think it's hard for athletes.
And do you see, because you've got so many good athletes around here, do you see people kind of fight against that? Like if they're starting to break down, they just keep pushing until they're totally broken? Do you see that happening, or is it the trend of switching disciplines kind of taking over?
I think it's age that allows them to switch over. I think they get to a certain
maturity.
age. Yeah, at least in Boulder here, a lot of people move here when they're 18.
Yep.
And at that age, they're known or they're good at something, and they want to stick to it. And
they can bounce back really fast from anything.
Correct. So I think it's the with age, they get in their solid 20s, upper 20s, and then they start to be more curious, and they feel more like they've made a name for themselves. Those younger folks, they haven't quite established that name.
Yeah, that brings up something interesting. You've seen a lot of athletes that you've worked with young, and now they're older and reaching their 30s. How do you see their ego change through those years? Other than just the maturity aspect of it, like when those young guys come in, are they totally brash and, or do you see some mindfulness there?
I guess when I see these young kids and they come in, I do see that brashness, but I don't really take it personally. Mm-hmm. They're just fighting for as much respect as they can kind of grab.
Sure.
And I do believe they have good intentions. They're young. They can't communicate it properly. I think that's what they struggle with.
Yeah.
I don't think they mean to be, they come off sometimes as dicks, and I don't think that's what their intention is.
Sure. And when you're young and they come off that way, you end up coming off the same way because that's how you're reading it.
Oh yeah. Or this day and age, I'm just like, do you really mean that?
Right.
And I'll kind of, especially if it's directed towards me or towards someone else that I hear, I'm like, do you really mean that? Come on now. Do you know what it sounds like?
Mm-hmm.
But yeah.
And the sport's kind of selfish, it's kind of an individualized, selfish sport anyway. So you have to bring some ego into it.
I don't think it should be selfish, though. I'm going to push back against this. I really resent how it is going to be selfish. If we're going to, actually, this is my direction back to you.
Yeah, let's go.
this modern day age of bouldering or sport climbing is I just need someone to carry extra pads up or just to hang on to the other end of the rope while I climb my project. I can't stand that attitude. I mean, like, it doesn't matter who your partner is. I know you climb better with certain people and certain energies.
For sure.
But this day and age, it's like, I don't need someone else. I just need pads or someone to belay me.
Yep.
And there's no partner connection at all. I think it's deteriorating.
Yeah, we definitely don't hear of it anymore, like the Piana Skinner,
No.
the Kalkenbacker, those old partnerships.
And yeah, you could say, well, we're not as cliquey anymore. But it's also, there's not a tightness. Like, with a good partner, you can be vulnerable. Like I was climbing with Adam Stack this morning. Adam, I've known since he was a kid.
Yep.
And yeah, he was a little punk ass bitch when he was young and mouthy and funny, but pushed it too far. And he's totally mellowed out now. It's very interesting to be around Adam. But we had a partnership, and he knows, like, when I go climbing with him that, yeah, I'm not the boldest dude out there. And so when I say, watch me, he's like, yeah, I'll watch you. I got it. I know it's not that hard, but I know how you get, and I want to be here for you. And I want you to have a good day too. And so I think it's really important that I wish there was a stronger partnership amongst people. Where
I think I agree completely. Can we kind of shift gears and go that direction? I think.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like the belaying thing. More and more people are getting dropped. Why? Because they don't even connect to their belayer when they take off. It's like they tie in, they start going up. And I've seen this at like Popular Craigs. It's like, I'll ask, like, are you tied in? Oh yeah, it's still too late. I'm like, it's not too late. You're at the third bolt. I can't recall if I actually checked you. Did you double back? And are you cool?
Yeah.
And don't give me attitude. I'm trying to get your back, and you just took off.
Yep.
So it's like, I really wish people would like look me in the eye as a belayer and say, are we ready to go for this? Yeah, we're ready to go for this. Let's do it. And then, because that's how I see it, is they're the athlete. Their job is to put on that good show. My job is to be an audience. But if you don't even want, as an actor or a performer, to engage your audience, I could care less, man. I'm going to go down there and surf on my phone.
Right.
If you're going to be a jerk or not engage me, it's just like, oh, what's going on? I got a ding, ding, ding.
Yeah, I completely agree. I definitely think partnerships are maybe the most important part of this thing. You know, I don't want to leave the ground, and I'm not going to be able to try my hardest if my belayer is just some random person. I'm not good at just grabbing random people to go climbing with. You know, I definitely like to have a connection while I'm out there. What do you think's driving this? You know, like you said, it's going toward a selfish way, and you don't like that.
I think, well, it has a lot to do with, I mean, there is a larger sense of community. I mean, you go to the gym, and there's a large sense of community. And it's like, oh, I know so-and-so, and I know so-and-so. And, okay, I'm looking for a belay, you're looking for a belay, or you're looking to climb. Let's kind of hang out together. But it's, for a lack of, I mean, this is probably a lame analogy, but it's probably like just Facebook friends. Like, let's just be friends. And like, I don't know this person. And I've met them, but I don't know them. I would never consider them a friend.
Right.
Just like for you and I, we're not friends. I know you. We've had a couple interactions, but like that connection.
Right.
Yeah.
Do you think you develop that by going climbing, or do you want to have that connection with someone before you go climbing?
Oh, you develop it while climbing, I think. Don't you?
That's for sure. That's the way I would do it.
Yeah, I love it. Build it, because I get to see that individual for who they really are.
Yep.
That's what the awesome thing about climbing is you can't hide who you are. I mean, you are who you are, and you get to see, you read the person's body language for who they are.
Yeah, and you get to watch people grow in a pretty cool way. Yeah. When you go rock climbing.
And evolve over time. You build that, it's like that long-term friendship. If you have that multi-decade friendship, you've seen that history of that friend. It's the same thing with climbing. It's like, okay, I knew this person there, and you see this journey that they're on.
So when you're thinking of like a big, you know, not necessarily a project that you want to do, but a big objective that you have, do you think in terms of of partnerships in that, or is it something that's your objective and you'll reach out to one of your many partners?
That's a good question. I would say often it's a mutual relationship.
Okay. So you want someone else with that same objective?
Yeah, like all my LCAP routes, I had really tight connections with everybody that I climbed with, and it forms over time. Any sport climb projects, same thing. It forms over time. I do like that. I like that connection.
Yeah. So for you, it's not really a selfish thing at all. Obviously there's some, this is what I want to do, but you're looking at it from a relationship point of view.
Well, I think it's just, I just love climbing. I just want to climb.
Mm-hmm.
So it's, if I get that partner and at the end of the day, like I can tell that they had a great day, yeah, it really helps me have it makes my day seem better, or they're having a great time.
Yep.
It really connects to me. Especially when, like, tomorrow I'm supposed to do 30 pitches for Chelsea Rude's birthday, and yeah, I think it's going to be hard for her. She's becoming a trad climber, and she's scared of Eldo for probably good reasons. And she'll probably fall apart because that's part of the challenge, and it's exciting to be there with her. And like, that's where that connection grows, is like when you see a real moment, it gets exciting.
Yeah, for sure.
Like for my 45th, that's where she kind of got it, I think, was I did 45 pitches, and like I cramped up in the middle of the day, and I told my partner, college kid, I'm like, I think I'm done. I don't know. Oh, come on, let's do it. Let's finish it. And I'm like, my biceps are cramping.
Yep.
Like I'm going to take a huge whip soon.
Yep. So what about when your partner's not having a good day? How do you handle that as a partnership without being selfish and just saying, I still need to continue doing my thing?
Oh, I'll have to, you can, if I'm having a decent day, because sometimes I'm on that opposite end, and I wish, what I like to do if I feel comfortable is just call the person out. Why are you being a dick today?
Mm-hmm.
What's wrong? And just kind of like get it out there. And then there's usually something going on. They just need someone to talk to or open up and just say it out. And then the day usually turns around.
Get it out there in the open.
Yeah, it's the same thing with any fears,
Any
like
kind
head
of
case.
relationship too.
Relationship, or or relationship with your project even.
Yeah.
So many people are, I find, in denial about their fears. And it's like, come on now. I know you're scared. I know you're intimidated for something. Just say it. It's going to make it so much easier.
Yeah.
And people are hesitant usually at first because they don't feel safe. They don't feel like they can be vulnerable. And that's why that partnership, I think, is important.
Yep.
Is when I have a strong partnership, I can just say it how it is.
Yeah, it's funny. I was having a conversation with BJ Tilden's wife. My fiance and I were having dinner with BJ and his wife, and we were talking about what do the guys talk about at the crag, because the girls had all been going climbing together, and they pour everything out, and BJ and I were like, we don't really talk about anything. Like, we talk about climbing and projects, and and it seemed interesting to me that the girls took it this completely different direction than the guys do. And I definitely believe I have a good partnership with BJ when we're going climbing, but it doesn't have to be totally emotional. And he'll call me out, if I'm being a pussy on something, he'll call me out. And I appreciate that. Do you have a difference with guy-girl partnerships? Like when you're with a girl, is it different than if you're climbing with a guy? Or are you just open the same way both ways?
I would say I'm emotionally open the same way.
Mm-hmm.
I would say I'm naturally more protective the opposite way. Like if I'm trad climbing.
If you're trad climbing, you want a different partner?
I will put myself in more risk. And I guess maybe it's not. It's more that I guess that it's not, because I'm going through. I do the same thing just with someone's skill set. If I'm going trad climbing and someone is not comfortable with, or I don't perceive them as being comfortable on a certain run out or commitment level or grade, I'm just like, I'll do it.
Okay.
But I don't know if that's, but during the day, yeah, I'm pretty open.
Okay.
I mean,
Yeah, I'm definitely more open, I think, with women than I am with men. And I don't know why that is, but I like the male climbing partnership better.
yeah,
So
you push harder. You
For
like
sure.
it gets you near your limit
yep.
or at your limit.
Unless it's my fiance, or if I've also found that when my daughter is nearby and cheering me on, that's huge for me too. Like, because I can just block out other voices, and I can pick out her voice. I can pick out my fiance's voice. And oftentimes, if I'm with one of my male climbing partners, it's their voice that I hear.
Yeah.
So, and I think that's really important. If you've never experienced that when you're climbing, then maybe you're just not finding the right partners, or maybe you're not looking for partnerships at all. Like you said,
Yeah.
You're just going climbing with whoever.
Well, maybe I started off too strong where there's partnerships, but I just don't think it's to the same degree.
Yep.
I don't.
No,
I
know
just. I
exactly
don't
what
think
you
it's the
mean.
same degree where it has been in the past with climbers.
Yeah. Yeah, I can go sport climbing with a lot of people.
Yeah.
A lot of people that I've barely ever climbed with or had conversations with. But you're right. If it's going to be a big objective, if it's something you're really emotionally invested in, I think you need somebody that you're close to.
Yeah.
Yeah. So let's go back to your LCAP partnerships. You've partnered up with, I know you partnered with Tommy on the muir wall. Is that right?
Magic mushroom.
With Magic Mushroom, right. So what's that kind of partnership like where
Stressful.
stressful
as far as it was never stressful about logistics. We both like nailed that. Workload, not an issue. I mean, you're climbing with Tommy and it's just like, God. And like, I just was, these conversations I was having with Adam today where it was like, I wonder if I could have, what if it would have made it worse if I knew that Tommy was going to go the next week and do it in a day?
Right.
Would that mess with me even more?
Yeah.
Just this notion of like, I could barely do it over 5 or 7 days, wherever it was. And this idea of, oh yeah, I'm going to come back and do it in 24 hours. I feel like, fuck you.
That's tough.
It's that ego.
Yeah.
That word ego where
Yep.
it's just like, it hurts. It's like, yeah, I know you're better than me, but damn, are you that much better?
Yeah, and that's what I'm wondering. Like if, your partner on this wall is the guy destined to become the greatest wall climber we've ever seen, wall free climber we've seen. So how does that affect your try hard when you're on the wall? Are you trying harder or are you cowering a little and letting him do his thing?
That goes both ways. I mean, you naturally have, I think, in a partnership, a leader and first the A team and the B team.
Yeah.
And like I can think of a number of pitches, one down low where it was only 12C, but it was off a bunch of heads. And I was like, it's you, Tommy. Have fun.
No doubt.
I don't think I can do this right now.
Yeah.
And it was on a bunch of small heads. And I was just like, I just can't, I don't foresee me doing this right now. I don't have this dialed enough.
Yeah.
And he was like, cool. And got the job done.
And when you were on the wall, were you aware of the ego games that you could be playing with yourself?
I was aware of it. It goes back to that partnership. Tommy and I have known each other for quite a while, but we hadn't climbed together that much.
Okay.
And that was the first time on the wall I always looked up to Tommy. I admired him, and it was exciting, and it was a big unknown project, but I knew the most stressful part was, okay, he's going to get it done, but am I going to be able to get it done in time?
Right. Were there things, actionable things you did on the wall to lessen that destructive part of the ego?
I didn't do anything. I was just, no. I mean, I thought I rested more. Like we would session on the wall for a couple days. We'd come down and he would just like boot up and boulder for another day.
Right.
It's just like, you're bouldering right now? Damn, I can't even like think about climbing. My fingers hurt.
Yep.
And he's training some more.
Well, it's a pretty mature decision to just be able to say, I'm not going to do that. You go ahead and do that. I'm going to hang back.
Yeah, you might say it's mature, but I would say it beats you too. It's just like, because I mean, when you're young and driven, it's like, I want to keep up with the big dog.
Right.
And I want to do it if that's what it needs. But it's like, okay, if I do that right now, I might not walk away with anything.
Right.
It could be 5 weeks and walk away with nothing. And there's a sliver of hope here. I'm going to put it in my favor. I can't boulder. I just couldn't. My skin needed repair. And then he would work on his house some, and I would just sleep.
So in a sense, you let your ego take you to make better decisions because you wanted to keep up in the long run.
You might make decisions, but internally there's that battle.
Oh, for sure.
And I think that's what we all struggle with when we talk about ego, is there's that internal battle of that self-worth. And it's like, I might not be I'm less worthy than this other person.
Mm-hmm.
And that's hard, I think, to deal with.
Yeah. And that's what I'm kind of getting at. Like how, with Tommy being your partner, how do you deal with that?
He's he's a good partner. He's very good at putting you at ease.
And maybe that's a big part of it.
I mean, there's this partner is having a partner in any sense is there's a two-way relationship. And
we saw that with him on the Dom wall with Kevin.
Yeah.
He hung back and waited.
Yeah. But yeah, it's hard.
When going back onto the ego track here, I guess it was last year, you guys did the Black Diamond boot camp. And you had Sam and Dan and Joe, all three pretty radically different personalities, and definitely ego built into all three. And I think there has to be to push yourself in a sport like this. But was there something you saw different in the three of them that you could help the three of them along with by pointing out the others? If that
was an
sense.
interesting kind of couple month session. There is a lot of ego, and I don't say necessarily when we use that word ego, it's usually negative.
Yeah,
someone has an ego. Word. It's a really loaded word, but I think for anyone to push a standard or push themselves to the limit, you have to have an ego.
Yep.
Ego is not necessarily a negative thing, and ego, drive.
That's a good word for it, drive.
But that's at this moment, drive is, we use that in the positive.
Right.
Where ego, they have an ego, it's negative.
Right.
And that ego is what makes you get up and work hard and push. But they all, like you stated, they all have different personalities. They all have an ego. They're all high-end athletes. They all want to push it. But their personalities are very different.
Yeah.
Joe's very outgoing. Dan's much more quiet. Sam is very expressive.
Mm-hmm.
And it was, as a coach, it was a great experience as far as, because I believe in struggle is when we learn the most, when we struggle. So if I had a struggling moment with that camp, I would say.
Right.
Because it was on many levels just challenging. They all wanted what was best for them, but it's a training camp. It's not an individual needs. It's a group thing.
Mm-hmm.
Trying to get them to understand that one's behavior affects the other. Just that team camaraderie of it's not a zero-sum game. A lot of us believe climbing is a zero-sum game. So if you have a badass day, that means I'm having a bad day.
Right.
And that's not true. And we see this on the send train. So if you send, sometimes the environment's good where it's like you send, then you send, and then you send, and it just keeps going. And other times it's you send, and then everyone else gets shut down.
Right.
And that's an environment thing. And it's it's interesting. I think it's hard to express to people, like calling them out on their stuff.
Oh, definitely. And I think, we take an emotional hit if you're being called out. And climbing's an emotional thing, no matter how you look at it.
Oh, it should be emotional.
Yeah, for sure.
I think I love the emotional part. I mean, there's the negative, ugly side of fear and all that, but there's this other side of fight, desire, want, drive, and just like you see that, and that's emotion.
Yeah.
And I think at a certain point, everybody's climbing. If they're climbing long enough, they think that the next stage is to eliminate emotion.
Okay.
I think somewhere within everyone's climbing, they come to this point where it's like, I'm eliminating emotion. I'm just gonna be a cold, calculated killer,
be a robot.
I'm just gonna go in and destroy and just. But you can't reach that upper potential, I don't think, because that's what emotion. Because when you show emotion, that positive emotion, it does affect your environment, and it does become contagious, and people start driving energy towards you.
Yeah.
And that's why I think what you're hitting on when you said that you could hear your daughter or your fiance's voice down there. It's like, oh, they're watching. They're paying attention. They're aware. I need to put on a good show. I need to do this right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, my fiance always says that she knows when I'm about to send something whenever people walk up. And I have a natural...
You respond to those people.
I respond to a crowd. That's just what I've always done, from music to now. Whenever I'm on a stage in front of people, I'm at my most comfortable. And she said multiple times, as soon as that crowd walked up, I knew you were sending. And I think that's ego. That's part of that is me wanting to perform for people. But I've learned to use that to my advantage.
But a lot of people would twist that and say, oh, you don't climb for yourself.
For sure. I could definitely be called a show pony. I could see that.
But is that a bad thing?
I don't think so.
Because that's where I always get angry or frustrated when people say, like, oh, you're just doing it for this or that. And it's like, hey, we all want to feel worthy.
Yeah. And we all want to put good energy back out there.
Yeah.
And like you said, the partnership is so important. If I have a partner who's just bad energy all the time, that's not going to be my partner for very long. And if I can take my ego and use it to perform and then have that turn into good energy, then that's good for everybody, I think.
Yeah, I would agree.
Yeah. So looking at Joe and Dan and Sam, were there any particular challenges having those three guys, all strong, all good athletes? Were there particular challenges getting their egos to work together?
Oh, yeah. Because of the project, it was also, I don't think there was as much emphasis. Maybe there was some in the videos that people saw. I mean, they lived together.
Right.
I mean, they trained together, they lived together, they were together for quite a bit. And they had no
And they weren't like great friends leading up to that.
They all know each other well.
Other. Right.
But I wouldn't say they
weren't like road homies for years or something like that.
Probably some of them are more connected than others throughout their life. But yeah, I would say not roommates. So, yeah, I mean, Joe never trained. He was super excited, over motivated, and thought he could do more than he could, and got injured early on. And that was a bummer. Dan was struggling with the finger thing, and he wanted to show that he could work hard. He wanted to, like, I can work hard, but it's like he's broken. He can only do so much, I felt.
Yep.
And a lot of people, and I'm sure you guys see this, is if you're not physically trying hard, you're not necessarily training. And there's all these other components that are much more vague and nuanced.
Yep.
That takes more mindfulness to actually train. But it's externally, it's not as easy for people to grab like, oh yeah, he's working hard.
Yeah, it's not a tangible thing.
Yeah, you just see someone, but if you see someone mindfully rolling out on a foam roller and they're like, whoa, it could look that way.
Right.
But most people, they just go, okay, I'm done. And then off they go.
Yep.
And that's sort of like, okay, I'm a hangboard. And there's not this more that they're providing. So I think Dan struggled with finding that.
When Dan going in was kind of the underdog of the group, you know, he definitely isn't as well known as Joe and Sam.
Socially, in like a...
Right, in the general climbing community. So, you know, it's likely that he probably had the same sort of feeling that you might have had with Tommy on Magic Mushroom.
Oh, yeah.
Like,
for sure.
Should I defer to these two guys because they're the better guys?
There's the defer, or I think it's more that you just want to prove that you're on the same playing field, that you're worthy enough to play on the same field.
For sure.
But yeah, that's... And then Sam was... He kind of did buy into that zero-sum game. So if one person was having a great day and he wasn't able to keep up, that would bring him down.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's a common thing that a lot of people do.
I've seen it in couples quite a bit.
Like relationship couples?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, when they're out climbing.
Uh-huh.
You know, if the girl's having a great day, the guy's day just goes to shit automatically. I've seen that happen a lot.
Interesting.
Yeah. When Joe got injured, was he able to keep his stoke up for everyone else?
Oh, no, that was because I was the first, because I mean, I know them all socially.
Right.
Like I've known Joe for a while, but I haven't really hung out with him. So I was like, really? On the side? Are you really Mr. Psych all the time?
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, yeah. And I was like, no, really? No one can be that psyched all the time. And then he hurt his finger and he wasn't psyched.
Yeah.
And he was bummed. Like he wouldn't show up for a couple of days because he was pissed. He was bummed. He was probably mad at himself for doing it, not listening or just overdoing it or just thinking that this gym crap is going to bust me because you hear that. It happens often. And he was bummed. And I think but Joe is one of those people that is genuinely very positive and
he is
good energy,
yeah.
which is quite nice to be around. It's
Mm-hmm.
interesting. It's interesting.
Yeah, I agree completely. The first time I ever climbed with Joe, I was only climbing, V6 or something, and he was just as psyched for me as he was for him.
Yeah.
And that's great to see. But it's interesting that you say he couldn't keep that up once he was injured. And I think that's, partly to do with when you have that heavy drive and, especially when other guys are involved and there's a bit of a competition happening, which is going to happen when you have guys together, and when something falls apart for you, it just seems like it's that much further to fall. So, your ego is going to take a giant hit when that kind of thing happens. But he was able to bounce back eventually, I'm sure, through being
Just
pulled
time.
up by all of you guys.
Yeah, time. He turned it around. Felt better after a while. I mean, it was a 3-month project, I believe.
Cool.
So.
Now back to ego again. When you're say working with competition athletes,
Mm-hmm.
whose main focus is just to be a competitor, do you see something different in them as far as how they need to harness the positive side of their ego or their drive as opposed to outdoor general climbing public?
I think there's a lot more stress, I think, when you're competing, because you do to this day and age, to climb well at these comps, you have to dedicate a lot of time in the gym.
Mm-hmm.
And gym climbing is great, but after a while, you just want to shoot yourself. I mean, how much time can you go in there?
Yeah.
And they log hours and hours and hours, and they do a great job. And that's why I think most of them are young, because they're limited. They can't really get out as often. They can't travel and that sort of thing. But when you go, you invest months of effort, and then you go game day, and it all falls on you, and you have to perform well that day. And most people, all they do is they train so they don't screw up.
Right.
And it's really hard to, like, that ego is like self-worth. And it's like, no, they don't really train it properly, because they train as like you are worthy to be there and you deserve to be there, but you and everyone else deserves to be there, but you have to show up and show that you want to be there and that you are an amazing person, that you are an amazing climber, but you have to bring that. You can't just kind of warm up and then do it. I mean, everyone's expecting you to do that. And emotionally, a lot of those climbers aren't built that way.
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of climbers as a community were a bunch of nerdy folks.
Yep.
We're all quiet and awkward and
Yep.
finicky. We're not showboats. Like, look at me. Like, your traditional athletes are very, look at me, look at me.
Right.
Climbers are like, they're pretty intelligent and they're overthinkers, and they think they can outsmart. And that's the thing. They train, they think they can outsmart. And you see this, and you'll see this like bouldering format. You'll see the boulders, they try and they fall, and they sit there and they stare at the wall as if something like, oh, there it is. Like,
right.
oh, I forgot. The arret's on. It's like, no, I don't know what. And they just stare and stew, and they don't back off and just feel. And I don't think that people train it effectively. Like, I need you to train like to be awesome. Like, I need you to become the man or the woman. And like, I need to watch you and go, yeah, nice rhythm. Because it's just, I talk a lot about dancing,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't dance. I'm terrible at dancing.
Yeah.
But when someone is climbing well, you see that natural, the rhythm.
Yep.
Like, they feel it. And that's the key sense that most people don't tap into when they're training, is feeling. And some people are like, oh, don't tell me how like, do you feel like you need a rest day? You should listen to your body. But just feel when your body should generate, feel when your body should go, feel when you're mentally ready. So when that climber falls off that competition problem, they come down. My common thing is I try to teach these people to look down or turn your back to the problem and feel first what just happened. But it takes, the ego is so strong. It's like, I shouldn't have fallen. That's so damn easy. I shouldn't be able to do that. And it's like, back off. Like, just back off and just figure out, diagnose what happened. And then we can come up with a solution about what we need to fix or how we're going to approach this.
Mm-hmm. And do you do that on routes too? Like, if someone falls off of a route, say it's just a general climber and they fall off of a route they're working on, do you take the same sort of approach, kind of back away from it for a second?
Well, it's that awareness piece, I think. Most people can't even feel what actually happened.
Right.
And they watch themselves and they think that, oh, I'm just not strong enough. And it's like, dude, I saw you. You were tired and you generated, because your knees and toes work as a unit. And when you're tired and intimidating, your knee dominant, so your trajectory's out. But all they hit the hold, but their hips are falling out, and all they feel is, my fingers aren't strong enough to hold my body back, pull my body back in. And it's like, your fingers are plenty strong enough. Your toes aren't. The kids downstairs aren't doing their job. They're not pulling. They're not reeling your hips back in. But they don't even notice that it's just because their forearms are pumped and they're just like here, or their core has been engaged too long, so the timing is off, or who knows. There's so many moving parts, but they can't look back and honestly just be aware of like, so what happened? Okay, so, or even the storyline. Route climbing, I think, is a longer storyline.
Sure.
It's like, okay, and the story starts way down a number of draws and things start going spiraling forward or backwards. Mm-hmm. And
so how do you get them to kind of drop that, that ego that causes them to
denial?
Denial, exactly.
I think video is like the easiest way. That's what I love pulling out, is like bullshit. You're scared right here. Look,
Yep.
you totally like you can see it, right? And they're like, yeah, see, you can't deny it.
Mm-hmm.
Or
Is there
whatever
something
it
they
is.
can do? If they're out with just their partner and they're working on a route and they fall and they go immediately to that, my fingers aren't strong enough or whatever. What can people do to calm themselves down and be able to look at what happened and feel what happened? Or is it just a thing they have to practice over time?
I think it's something you have to that awareness, that feel, be able to recall. I mean, I've not come across very many people that can do it well naturally without much guidance. And even with guidance, it takes a long time, I think.
Sure. How would they go about working on it? What's something they can do to...
I just start off with the single move system board, right side, left side. Evaluate one side, boom,
Okay.
you're awesome on this side. Okay, the left side, you're not so good or whatever. And it's like, well, I'm not left-handed, right-handed. I'm like, it's not that.
Right.
It goes to the focal point of the weakness part. There's
Yep.
a moving part that's not as athletic or is this muscle memory is not as strong and
Yep.
it's not firing quite as well. And you need to find the source of that problem. So you do the good side and you feel like, oh, that's good. Now you do the weaker side and then the good side.
Yeah. I also like to have people, and this doesn't work as well on a route as a boulder problem, but if I'm in the gym and someone can do a move really easily that I can't do,
Yeah.
I'm like, do that again. Show me that again, and I want to try to see what's happening in that move for them that I can't feel happening in my move.
Correct.
you
Yeah.
know? And I think that's super important. And I don't think people use that enough. They watch the stronger climbers and either they pretty much just automatically go to, oh, he's just stronger than me, and that's not always. In fact, it's probably less times the answer.
Correct.
It's something they're doing better than you, but it doesn't necessarily mean they're the stronger person, and I think you have to drop your ego to approach that person and say, can you do that again? Can I watch you do that? Especially if they're your peer or if they're somebody who you have deemed to not be as good as you.
Well, that's
And they can do a move that you can't do,
and often people will just turn around and walk away and just kind of,
Oh, yeah.
stupid route
Definitely.
setting.
Yeah. These route setters suck, That happens all the time.
Yeah.
Do you see particularly destructive ego patterns in the gym just amongst the general climbing public? Other than that, blaming the route setters?
I don't think people are getting better about not blaming the route setters. At least I've been around for a while, so I think the current generation
You
they're
guys
doing a
have
better
good-
job.
You guys
and,
have good route setters here too. So.
I think boulderers they need to stop sitting down and pouting at the base of the wall in the gym. They need to stand up, walk away. I can't tell you how that's my most common, like, cool, we worked it out. Walk away. Go, just walk, come back. Like I just send them off some errand. And eventually I'm like, I'm just sending you off. I don't care what you do. Just go. And then they come back after a couple power spots on that thing. I'm like, okay, let's do some linkage or go for the send. Pop your shoes back on. And they usually do remarkably well. But if we just pop our shoes off and we sit at the base, they don't nearly do as well. It's crazy how accurate that can be.
Do you think
And
they're just staring at it, psyching themselves out, or getting
they're
frustrated?
thinking
or-
about it. Like if they're facing it, they're staring at it. It depends on what the floor structure is. Sometimes their backs are turned and their feet are going away, but they're still kind of sitting there in that pouty position. And it's just getting them to stand up and distance themselves. Like stop thinking. It's exhausting to think all day.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's an emotional, like we've already touched on, it's an emotional thing. If you just keep stewing in that emotion of just failing, then, it's likely to carry over.
Correct. Training that person to think about what they do want. What do you want? What do you want? And some people are really good at pointing out what they don't want. And it's like, okay, that's great. That's kind of functional, but I need you to state something in the positive what you do want. I mean, like, yeah, you're skiing down the hill, skiing through the trees. And most people that are going new to skiing trees, all they think about is not hitting the damn trees.
Right.
But if you're an experienced skier, you're just like looking at the spaces.
Yeah.
And that's the same thing with climbing. You got to think about what you do want, not like, oh, what if my foot blows? My foot's gonna blow. I'm gonna smack my face. Mm-hmm. Especially on the top out of the boulder problem.
Top outs are the bane of the gym climber's existence.
Oh, gotcha. Right here too.
We are from the South, so top outs are a little different down there.
Yeah, they're scary.
What about the climber to climber ego? You know, what do you see destructive in the gym there, and how can we go about?
I think as a community, and I'm guilty of that,
I definitely am.
Giving people kudos, especially when you see something impressive, regardless of the degree. Like, that was good, nice, and actually point out what you thought was nice, not just a blanket statement. But that creates a very positive atmosphere, and then all tides rise. And because often, I mean, it's lonely if you're a strong climber. And some of the strongest climbers are the loneliest climbers in the gym because they don't have anyone to climb with.
Right.
But you have to still give back because those people can give back to you. I mean, I get insightful information from people that climb at a lower grade than I do all the time.
Sure.
But you're not going to get that insight unless you make yourself approachable.
Yep. You know, something that we were just talking about that I see pretty often with the ego kind of being destructive in the gym is, you know, there are going to be kids in there who are just jumpy and can do every jumpy dynamic move in the gym super easily. And it's really easy to dismiss things as, oh, that's just their style, you know, but for me, and I've had a really hard time with this, I've struggled with it because I am a slow, static, super controlled climber, you know, and I've worked hard to become more dynamic, and I'm still not really good at it. I'm barely good at it. But when I see these kids in the gym, I automatically go to, oh, that's not efficient. I automatically go there. But my best days have come from watching this kid do some crazy dynamic move or doing some move in a totally different way than I would do it, and then going, let me try that his way, you know, and spending 25 or 30 minutes learning how to do it his way as opposed to the way I can do it every time, which is my static, slow, sloth-like method. You know, my best days have come from that, from letting my ego down and just doing it, even though I might climb harder than him outside.
Why do you climb more static? What's your conclusion these days?
I think it comes from when I started climbing. It was like Francois Legrand was the cool thing to watch, and I was a trad climber, and that was just the style we climbed in, and it felt good. People told me it looked good, you know. Yeah. So I think I just stuck with that, and it wasn't until Sharma came along and was this jumpy kid, and I started to realize that, oh, maybe that could work. I still never even gave it the time to learn it. I would occasionally do a dyno if it was in the gym, or I would have to do some dynamic move and I would get through it.
Can you pogo?
I've spent a ton of time, actually, because of Carlo's videos, I've spent a ton of time learning that technique. And now I find myself using it occasionally. Yep. You know, and feeling like I'm getting better at learning when to use it or when it's going to be more effective. So, but I think, again, you have to drop your ego to practice that shit in the gym, because people are watching you fail on something that's easy for that kid over there.
Yeah.
You know, it's really hard to drop your ego and do that.
Yeah, I see. I probably shouldn't drop his name, but famous climber come in. And he just dreads climbing in the gym but he's learned to accept it because, I mean, he's this person that everybody in the world knows, and he gets schooled by tons of young kids or even adults just schooled, and he's just like, "Arr." And it's hard.
That's really hard.
And my my feedback was like, give it to these people. I mean, give it to them. I mean, you're this person that's amazing. I mean, make them feel good for once. Like, make them feel good about that they can school you, and just change that direction, and you'll climb a little bit better, most likely. But the gym is a very productive tool to use.
Yeah, and at least in my case, he would feel better. You know, it feels good to me when I am able to not just be the grouchy old guy.
But it's fun being grouchy.
It is. It's really fun being grouchy.
I like being that grouchy old guy.
I've definitely done my time being the grouchy old guy. But it's a good feeling when I can be like, oh man, that's fucking cool. How do you do that?
Yeah.
You know? Because then they get really psyched to be helping you.
Yes.
You know, and that's a super good feeling for everybody.
It is. And I agree. I wish the stronger community would do that more. But it's hard. I mean, there's frustrations. I see why we don't. But
yeah. What are you learning from the kids these days? Because you've got some really strong kids around here.
What are we? I mean, it's just that age-old thing is what used to be hard is just not hard, and they just piss all over it.
Yeah, that's huge.
And and I do have that crusty attitude, like you're saying, like, well, they didn't look smooth, and they didn't really. It comes with time, but it's amazing how much they can execute. Like, there's like no way I can climb that in that style, but yet they do, and with time, their movements will mature. But it's just this. I think it's amazing how the women are just like neck and neck with the guys now.
Yeah,
but more and more.
Yep, their growth is definitely bigger than the men's right now.
Yeah.
They're growing at an exponential rate.
And I think it's really cool that excites me to see that gender gap shrink.
Yep. And I think it's tough, you know, for the older climbers to look at these 12-year-old girls climbing 514.
Do you think it's harder for them?
I think it is.
Interesting.
I think it's tough for people to accept it. You know, I've gotten much better at accepting it because I see it on the regular now.
Yeah.
But I think it's tough for people.
Yeah, I guess years ago there was a lot of conversation about, but they got smaller hands. And blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
I
But they're
remember
so
those
light. They can
conversations.
only do that because they weigh
Right.
65 pounds, you
Yeah.
know, things like that. And then, you know, you look at somebody like Ashima, and she's just a good rock climber. It doesn't matter how small her hands are, how light she is. She's a good climber. She moves like a brilliant rock climber.
Yeah.
So you take those things into account, and, you know, we've all got a lot to learn from them.
Yeah. They just need to pace themselves.
Yeah.
That youthful energy wears out.
Yeah, but you know, that's something I'm getting from the kids these days too, is this excitement.
Oh, yeah,
about
I feed
climbing
on it.
again. You know, I think it's super
I
exciting.
totally
to
feed on it.
watch.
Like I was funny, like today with Adam, I was telling him like, yeah, I'm just. He knows I'm crusty and grouchy and blah blah blah. I'm like, but I like to offset it with climbing with young kids that are excited. So
Yeah.
it just balances me out because I just be this grouchy jerk all day, and then it's like I like climbing with those people though.
Yeah.
Lightens me up,
Yep.
gives me hope. But I think it's important that this older generation pass things on.
For sure.
Pass.
Yep. Not get stuck in the old ways,
Or
accept that something else is coming and be gracious about it.
or just pass on your knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
Like this college kid I'm climbing with this evening, and we've been practicing simul climbing and teaching that art of simul climbing. It's very effective for many reasons.
Yeah.
But people don't learn how.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah.
Well, I definitely appreciate you passing your knowledge on, because, you know, I've got a lot to learn from you, and, you know, all these people around here I'm sure do. So, and you're open to learning from them, which I think is super cool.
Oh, I love being stumped.
Yeah.
Good questions.
All right, man. I appreciate it, and let's do it again sometime soon.
Thanks for having me, Chris.
Yep. Thanks to Justen for inviting me over to his house and sitting down and having this conversation with me. I wanted to give you guys something different than what you've heard from Justen before, and we tackle some kind of nebulous ideas here. And we're doing our best to give you guys actionable information. And sometimes with nebulous ideas like awareness, that's really tough to do. It's something you guys need to practice. And there's that word again, practice. It's something not enough of us do, but needs to become a regular part of your climbing if you hope to ever get to your limits, wherever those might be. So once again, thanks to Justen. You can find him at climbing-sensei.com if you're interested in working with Justen. He does training programs, coaching, private coaching. So reach out to him. And once again, if you're in the So Ill area, the St. Louis, Missouri area, come and see me at the So Ill Showdown. And Nate and I will be there the following week, 27th, 28th, 29th, doing workshops. We will also be there on the 30th for a live podcast. So we would love to have you guys in and love to talk to you. Please come over. If you're in the area and you're interested in private sessions, we'll be there all week. So hit me up and we can schedule a time to have private sessions with either Nate or myself. And like I said before, if you haven't done it, go give us a rating. Go give us a review. I'm looking to hit 100 here in 2017. So take some time. Go do that. We would appreciate it. That's huge. And as always, share us on your social medias. You can find us on the Facebooks, the Pinterests, and the Instagrams. You will not find us on the Twitter because we don't tweet. We scream like eagles.
This time, 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 this time,